Welcome to the Mischief. I'm Valen, and this is L. Ender's Cataclysm. Today I'm going to be taking you through just about everything that I can think of in order to try and help you accomplish conquering this mod. So this next boss we're going to be fighting is the Leviathan. It is as intimidating as the name implies, and you're probably going to be needing to take a completely different approach from what we've been doing for some of these other bosses. To start with, you aren't going to need any kind of fire resistance. Instead, we're going to be underwater most of the time, so it's a really good idea to have one or multiple potions of water breathing for as long as possible. At least while you're setting things up. Later on, hopefully you'll be able to use a conduit with some prismarine, and you can set yourself up one or multiple areas that are going to be safe for you to work with. And in fact, I highly recommend this. If you have not gotten a conduit or crafted one as of yet, I do suggest you get one and set it up very close to the boss arena that we will be eventually, or I will be eventually showing you. Now, where are we going to be going? We're going to the Sunken City, and we're going to be needing one of these, an Eye of Abyss. This requires a bit of obsidian, crying obsidian, and an Eye of Ender. Rather simple, and it floats easily and is safe to, it won't get destroyed very easily in the world as normal. So besides those, you're all set and ready to go, right? I would not recommend it. In fact, if you have access to a trident at this point, or if you can get one, I would recommend it. Otherwise, you could feasibly get yourself something, the next best thing from the Sunken City that we will be going to. And that is a coral spear or a bardiche. Now, either of these are going to be very, very handy because you can use them in the same way as a trident. And by that, I mean you can use Impaling, you can use Riptide, Loyalty, all sorts of basically water enchants that are going to be specific to the Trident can be used on the Coral Spear and the Coral Bardiche. And in fact, I recommend that you do so. I like having Impaling and Loyalty on the Bardiche because then you can, when you do hit, you hit big. Because you're not going to be hitting that often, so you need to do as much damage as possible. Then I ended up putting a little bit of Riptide on a trident. Now you could put Riptide on like a spear or something like that. It's not really for battle, it's more for just getting around in the arena. You're going to need this before fighting the boss, but you don't need that per se for getting around in the area that we're going to be, because there are areas of air that you can feasibly breathe. It's just finding the entrance is a little bit tricky. As per usual, I recommend you stock up on golden apples, get yourself netherite armor with all sorts of protection on it as much as possible. A shield doesn't hurt, but it's not going to be as required. If you're outside of the water, then your Riptide effect with a shield can be really nice because then you're not actually going anywhere. But if you Riptide while you've got a shield, it's a bit awkward. Either way, you're going to be on a scavenger hunt once you get there. And let's take a look at the Sunken City. This is the Sunken City, and you'll probably be able to see it above the water in most cases. You'll probably also have a little bit of an issue seeing things very well, which, as you notice in the top right of my screen, I have the conduit power going on, which will definitely help. But you're going to be fighting a lot of Deeplings. Now, there's a wide variety of Deeplings that you may end up experiencing. Many of them may have some of these weapons that I've been discussing, like the Coral Spear or the Coral Bardiche, like this Deepling Brute is pleasantly holding here. Effectively, you're going to want whatever your main weapon to be to have Impaling as high of a level as possible so that you can do damage to all of these water mobs that you're going to be fighting. Looking at the overhead map of this place, you can see it is kind of a maze, but it also has like a very large central arena. That is the area you'll be fighting the boss, but you can't just go straight in and fight the boss, as you probably have experienced with several of the previous ones so far. You will need to go on what I said before, a scavenger hunt, and that means you'll have to find specific pieces to make one of these, an abyssal sacrifice, which is consistent of a block of diamond, a block of iron, a block of gold, a block of emerald, a block of amethyst, a heart of the sea, and the three important items that you will only find most likely around this area, the Nautilus shell being an exception, but the Nautilus shell, the Athame, and the crystallized coral. But here's the thing. The Athame may drop as an item, But the crystallized coral isn't. You have to craft it. It's consistent of several smaller crystallized coral fragments, which then drop from these guys here. This is a Coralssus. Yeah, it's actually called that, and it can actually be kind of sat upon by other Deeplings. In this case, there's an angler. You'll have to watch out for the anglers. They do have poison effects and fishing rods, which can really mess with you. The Coralssus is basically just a brute. It will try punching you, and you can easily just range it down from a distance, hiding behind like a pillar or something like that. Just keeping it at bay is pretty easy. If you're in a very deep area of water and you run into a Coralssus, they float. They can't fight you in the water. So you could easily just kind of get them into deep water and then just attack them from below, and you're pretty much safe. But if you're fortunate enough, after fighting enough of these Deeplings and Coralssus, you may end up getting some of these really handy weapons, so you can feasibly come in here with a sword and just fight a bunch of them to get all the gear that you may need to further fight the boss itself. Just so you're aware, because it can be a bit tricky to try and hit some of these guys, this is where the hitbox is on them. So don't think that their giant head is actually the best target. You'll want to aim for the mid-lower section of their body in order to be able to hit them easiest. Now there are, of course, just regular Deeplings, there's the anglers, there's the brutes, but then there are some special mobs as well that you're really going to want to be careful about. And that's going to be somebody like this here, the warlock or the priest. They both have special abilities, but if you'll notice, he's actually holding an athame, so this is going to be one of the items that you're looking for as well. So between the Coralssus and the warlock or priest, you can then start gathering the items that you need, as well as all of the, the loot that it requires to do so. You are really going to want to watch out for the warlocks and priests. They have special abilities that can affect you similar to the boss. So once you're able to really locate the central area to the boss arena, you're going to want to make sure that you have yourself some kind of conduit, probably just outside the walls, because these walls are protective and equivalent to bedrock. They'll stop the boss from actually destroying things, and this will mean that you can have this safely nearby, giving you the air that you need as well as the vision. So once you're into this area and you have it, well, better lit at the very least, you could probably make do with night vision and water breathing potions, but you're already going to have enough on your plate. So again, I do highly recommend a conduit just outside the walls for safety. But this here, the Altar of Abyss, it will take items into it and sacrifice them. Specifically, you're looking for the Abyssal Sacrifice, but you don't want to do that just yet. You're going to want to make sure that you have some of that amethyst crab meat from the very first video in this series at hand. And then you're going to want to come into an area that looks like this. Yes, you'll probably have to fight off a whole bunch of mobs, which will probably have the items that you're looking for once again if you haven't already gathered them. But you'll need this, the Altar of Amethyst. Taking some amethyst crab meat, you can then convert it into special versions of itself. Once that's completed, you can then take this out and you get yourself blessed amethyst crab meat. It's specifically blessed to help you fight the Leviathan itself. And you're going to need all of them. So I recommend taking all the amethyst crab meat that you have and have not eaten specifically because you've been holding on to it for this moment. I hope you've been paying attention. Then you can take it, turn it into the blessed amethyst crab meat, and then use that in the battle. As you can see here, it says you're affected by the blessing, which makes you immune to darkness, abyssal fear, and abyssal burning during the blessing effect. So this is really important for fighting the boss so that you don't end up suffering from all sorts of terrible status effects that may or may not kill you even quicker than the boss itself. Something I also neglected to mention is that the Bardiche does have a little bit more entity reach, but if you do want to use this in a melee version, like get a few swipes at the boss, you're probably not going to do quite as well because it is rather slow to load before you can actually swing with it properly. So I do recommend that you go with at least a trident or a spear as well, just for any of those. Now in this case, I'm actually going to be using the trident itself with loyalty and impaling 5 so that I can throw it and kill things from a distance and have it come back to me. Now, yes, I do have to wait for it to come back to me, but it is relatively quick. In this case, I will also have a shield, but it's going to be on my right hand, so I can block relatively quickly just by kind of going to that option, because if that's in my offhand while I'm trying to use this, I can't block because I'm throwing the trident or spear in this case. And then I'm going to have the crab meat in my offhand as a main food source for as often as I can potentially eat it, as well as golden apples nearby. Now, you'll notice that I also have another trident on my hotbar. This is just for movement purposes. So while I'm around here, I'm going to want to get out of the way of any kind of boss or effects that it might be having, or just get to the boss if needs be so that I can actually hit it because it's not in a very good area. Things that you might want to be aware of is that there's lots of buildings which will probably be destroyed in the process. You might not want to get rid of them because they can be really helpful, but you'll also want to be cautious about a bunch of these blocks that are nearby, which can really cause a lot of havoc on you and not really affect the boss so much. So I do recommend that you remove these unless you absolutely need them. And once you're ready, take the Abyssal Sacrifice and place it upon the Altar of Abyss. Things will start crunching, you'll start getting some crazy music, and of course, the Leviathan will be awoken and instantly try and eat you. So just be aware that you need to get away as soon as possible and try and take it out from a distance. As you notice there, it has a tongue attack where it can grab and pull you if you're too far away, but hopefully you'll be able to avoid a lot of its problems just by trying to get away from it with your Riptide effects. As you can see here. Not that that's really going to stop it much, but it does give you an opportunity to get away from it half the time, at least. So you'll notice that it leaves these little purple crystals around. Those are depth charges that you want to avoid or, well, take a lot of damage. And instead, just get out of the way. If you see it getting really upset, try and leave as soon as possible. Because it's better to get hit by one of those things than it is by some of its ray blasts that it can do. As you can see there, that is a very strong attack. It is most likely going to kill you. So don't be afraid to eat your special effect food, Blessed Amethyst crab meat, in order to avoid any of those issues. So your tactics here are probably best played with just trying to get away and launch the occasional shot at the Leviathan as you can. Those are something that you'll probably have experienced already with the priests and the warlocks being able to use some of those abilities. But yeah, you just need to get out of the way of just about everything that it throws at you, while also trying to figure out what direction it's coming from and trying not to die in the process. Its tongue attack isn't nearly as bad as some of the other effects that it can potentially do, so if it does grab you, just try and get away again. It's not that bad. This boss has 200 hit points, 10 armor points, which isn't that bad when you compare it to some of the previous ones that you've fought, but if you have the right preparations, the battle isn't too bad. As you can see, I'm doing quite alright. I've actually gotten it down below half health already, and I haven't lost more than a few hearts in the battle. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be easy, though, because it will also try to devour you at the same time. Keeping up with your foods is probably the most challenging part of this, while also trying to do damage to this creature, because you're already fighting it quite a bit. There we go, and with that, I'm able to defeat it. And the only reason that I had such an easy time is because it's not really dead. That's only half of its health. You might think that it's dead, but spoilers, it's going to still come at you and kill you. So just make sure that you have the ability to power up again. Look out for these homing orbs that it's going to launch at you. Having the two tridents, or the two impaling items, is actually really important because it allows me to effectively escape after I've already thrown one trident or trident-like item. I still have the other one also as a weapon, so just having two of them is really important in my mind. Something you should be aware of, if for some reason your Leviathan ends up on the surface, it becomes invincible when out of water. And anytime you hear that, you're going to want to get out of its way, and then, if possible, take a couple shots at it while it's stationary in one place. And then with a little bit of luck, you should be able to take out the Leviathan and reap the rewards. Hopefully, without dying. What had happened there is it had created this rift in the water. It usually will do this throughout the battle, depending upon what you might experience. There goes a couple of my corpses. Don't worry about those. They're fine. But it may create those warps and rifts as well, which will then suck you in. And another reason why you need to have Riptide for when you're fighting this boss. Don't forget, underneath, there is a little bit of gold and a wet sponge, just so you can get a tiny bit of the loot back from this battle. But let's take a look at the items that I ended up receiving from this. An abyssal egg, which, whether it's placed in water or on land, it will still actually harvest, but you can place one down, and you'll get one of these little guys here to turn into your own pet baby Leviathan. And they're super cute, they're excellent, and you just tame them with tropical fish. But even more important, you get access to tidal claws, which have a decent amount of damage. Yes, you can enchant them for even more, but they have special abilities, especially when there's groups of enemies, like there's 2 of them over here. You can shoot this and start attacking multiples of them, or launch yourself at it. Now, you'll notice that I'm grabbing it, doing a bit of constant damage as well as on-hit damage. So just by swinging it with the left click, it will attack one, if not multiple mobs that are close to each other. So they do have to be kind of near you. Let me grab a few mobs. Here, I'll put a bunch of these glow squid out in the water here so that I have multiple targets to look at. Then when I hit left click, you can see it goes around and attacks a lot of the mobs all in a group. So it's kind of an AoE in a way, more of a chain lightning. And yes, it will attack even in directions you're not quite facing. It goes for more or less the closest one at that moment. Now, alternately, as you noticed when I first clicked this, you also get a grappling hook, which works to just pull you to places quite effectively. And you can still keep holding on to it until you're ready to let go, and then drop it and you should fall appropriately. Now, yes, you can use this also out here, but you do have to be aware you're still going to be prone to like damage and stuff. But if you have your bottle equipped, then you could feasibly use them both together. Use one to get to a place, then use your bottle to kind of have a softer landing if you so desire, or just get up a little bit higher if you're trying to get up and around a ledge. So let's take a look at this new tidal claws effect on a little bit of some test dummies. So you can see it does go through several of them, just not everything that's nearby. So it's a bit awkward, and just by pressing it once, it will automatically go through all of them. So I don't need to hold it down. It's just doing this automatically. And again, you can enchant this for even more damage, or you can use it to just kind of get yourself from one place to another, which I did find quite entertaining to be able to use a grappling hook. So if you do go prepared into this battle, it's not going to be too bad, but it does take a lot of preparation in order for the battle to be as easy as what I was displaying. And there you go, we have our own baby Leviathan. Really cute. Highly recommend that you get your own. And it's probably just really hungry because I've got myself some tropical fish. Clicking on it until, of course, you can tame it. There we go. Now makes the baby Leviathan a little bit more obedient. But not too much. Yeah, they are a little bit of a house wrecker. They will destroy nearby mobs. But you can have it follow, stay, wander, and so on, just like before. If you do want to take it with you someplace, just get yourself a bucket of water, right-click it, you now have your bucket of the baby Leviathan. If it does die, don't worry, you can get yourself another one of these. They'll just drop the same egg again, but it will take you probably about 10 minutes or so for them to gestate. So that about sums up everything you need for this boss, so let's move on to another one. That's right, there's more parts to this series, so don't stop here. Feel free to click on here once the video is out on the channel. If you enjoyed this and would like to see more videos, please be sure to give a like, comment, subscribe. Don't be afraid to stop by on Twitch, where we stream regularly, and until next time, I'll see ya.